So Universal Analytics has stopped collecting data. You probably already know that. But did you know that after July 2024, your data will disappear forever unless you back up the data yourself? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you 3 ways how you can back up your Universal Analytics data. Let's dive in. Welcome to the channel, my name is Leon. I'm here to help you use your web stats to grow your website without spending hours in the process. I want to thank everyone that has been liking my videos and has subscribed to the channel recently, because that really helps me get these videos out to as many people as I can. As a way to say thank you, I've created a short cheat sheet on how you can grow your website traffic. So if you have a new domain or you have an existing domain and you want to start growing your website traffic, these are the small things that I would consider. So you can just grab that via a link in the description. Also, if you like this video and want to watch more, just go ahead to my profile page. You'll find all sorts of videos there on how to set up Google Analytics and how to build reports in order to grow your website. So in this video, I'm going to give you 3 ways how you can back up your Universal Analytics data. And after that, I'm going to share some tips on what you should and what you shouldn't export, because there are a couple of confusing things when exporting your data. So be sure to check that out. I will put timestamps in the video description so you can just move ahead. This video is probably going to be a little bit longer than usual. So the first option we will be reviewing is to import our Universal Analytics data inside of Matomo. Matomo is a Google Analytics alternative that has been around for a long time, and around 2% of all websites worldwide are already using it. And it turns out that Matomo has a great way of importing Universal Analytics data to Matomo. And this is probably the easiest way to get a complete picture of your website history inside of Matomo. And you do not have to configure anything. It is quite easy to set up. The only downside is that it will cost you a little bit of money per month, and you do not get any control over what's being imported because Matomo is handling the import for you. Also, I find the user experience of Matomo a little bit of rusty sometimes, but that shouldn't really hold you back, because this is really a great solution to import your Universal Analytics data. So the second option that we will be reviewing today is we're going to export our Universal Analytics data into Google Sheets. And this is probably the option that you want to pick if you want something that is completely free. Also, you have a lot of control over what's being exported, because you're just going to pick what dimensions, what statistics are being exported. You'll see in this video that this does take some work. Also, because Google Sheets is not capable of storing that much data. So you'll need to slice your data sets up in different tables, and that can be a little bit time consuming. And also, I think that many organizations will not be comfortable of storing their entire history inside a Google Sheet. So that's why I created a third option as well. And that third solution is funnel.io. If you need something that is a little bit more professional, a little bit more robust, you do not want to store your data inside a Google Sheet, or if you need something that is capable of storing like larger data sets, then I believe funnel.io is a great alternative. You get full control over the data that's being exported, the user experience is really good, and it also has a free option. Please note that the paid option of funnel.io is quite costly, so you probably want to review that before you go into this direction. At the end of the video, I'm going to share some experience with you on what you should do and what you shouldn't do when exporting your data, because it can get confusing sometimes, and I believe it's really worth your time taking a look at that last little section of this video. Alright, without further ado, let's dive into the rest of the video. So here's the homepage of Matomo. Let's take a look at the pricing. I really recommend that you go with the cloud option right here. You also have an on-premise option. That means that you can download the package and then install it on your own server. But this will take quite some time to set it up on your own server. And also the server that's required to run Matomo is approximately the same amount of money. And also you don't get the same amount of functionality. You need to purchase plugins with this option to get full functionality. I've tried it. I won't bother going that route. Just use their cloud solution. Also, if you're not using it on your live website right now, so you're only using it to archive, you don't need to bother setting the hits. You can just take the lowest package. However, if you want to use this alongside, for instance, Google Analytics, so you set it up on your live site, you need to select how many hits you have. So how many page views and how many events are you currently tracking? And then if it's, let's say it's 1 million per month, you pay a little bit extra per month. But otherwise, if you're just using it for archiving your Universal Analytics data, I think the 19 euros per month is fine. So I've already set up my account, so I'm going to log in and after that I'm going to show you how you can set up your Universal Analytics import. So I'm back in my Matomo account. As you can see, I've only set this up for a couple of days. If you want to import your Universal Analytics data, just go ahead into settings in the top right corner, and then under system there's a screen that's called Google Analytics Import. And the first time you open this screen, it looks a little bit different. I have a screenshot that I made during the first time when I ran the import. It looks like this. You just choose Quick Connect with Google Analytics. Then when you proceed, you get a list of all your views, but I recommend going back, because if you go back to the screen and you have authorized your account, you get a little bit more options. So if you've connected your Matomo account to your Google account, you can just go back into this screen where you can schedule an import for your Google Analytics account. And then you need to select which version of Google Analytics you want to import. Well, of course, we're going to import our Universal Analytics data. Then after that, we need to set a date range, like where is the history? Well, I have a site that has quite a long histories and I want to import all of it. So I'm going to say 2014 and then the 1st of January. And then I'm not going to bother looking up the exact date when Universal Analytics has stopped collecting data, because it's somewhere between July 2023 and maybe November 2023. So I'm just going to say 2024 and then the 1st of January. So I know for sure that I have all the data up until the point that Universal Analytics has stopped collecting it. Then I need to set the Google Analytics property ID. So I'm going into Google Analytics, into admin, and then under property settings, you will find the ID that they want to know here in this first field. Then after that, it asks for the Google Analytics account ID. So I'm going back into admin, under account settings, and then here is the account ID. And then it asks for a view ID. So I'm going back into the settings, and then I only have the all website data, but you need to make a decision what view you want to keep. So usually you have some filtered data, and that's probably the version that you want to keep. But if you're unsure, please ask someone in your organization what view you should be importing, because if you're importing the wrong view, you could be missing some conversion data. So import the view that has the most complete and accurate picture of what has happened with your website. So if you found the view, you can just go into your view settings and then copy the view ID here and then paste it in your Matomo import form. Then you can set a time zone, and if you have used custom dimensions on your Universal Analytics site and you want to map those, you can do that right here. I don't have that, so I'm just going to start the import right here. And my experience, I have already imported a site, is that this takes a long time. I've already tried out other solutions, so probably the quota of Google Analytics has been hit also because I've been importing using different routes. But my import is still not finished, and I've done this like 4 days ago. So it took me 4 days and I still haven't fully imported my entire history. So please, if you go down this route, don't wait up until the last moment, because you are probably gonna miss out on some data. So even though this site will take probably a couple of days to import all the historical data, I already have run an import on my other site, and I want to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to go into all sites and then select my other site, leonkortweg.nl/ and then the Universal Analytics import. And then of course, in the last couple of days and weeks, I didn't have any data. I need to go into the date selection and then say date range. And then I can select a date, for instance, January 2023 up to March 2023, and then hit apply. And then I see the historical data from Universal Analytics. And this is actually quite good, because I do not only get the visits over time, but I also get the traffic sources, and I also get the pages. So let's look into what data I have, and let's also compare this to Universal Analytics to see if it's actually accurate. 395 visits, and I'm going to check in Universal Analytics to see what Universal Analytics reports are showing. So I'm going to select the same date range. I need to go back into January 2024 up until March. And then I see sessions 395. Note that you won't get the user count. And I'm gonna show at the end of the video, I'm gonna give some tips on exporting your data. It is never a good idea to export your user count. I'm gonna explain it at the end of the video because it's a little bit too elaborate. But that's why you're not seeing the user count, you see the sessions. So 395 sessions, page views 732. And then the unique page views, I need to look into probably behavior, site content, all pages to see the total. It says 582. Yeah, 582. So if we compare Matomo to Universal Analytics, it is really accurate so far. Let's look at acquisition and see what information about traffic sources has been collected. So search engines. So let's compare that to Universal Analytics real quick. Search engines 161. Again, we need to look at sessions and not users. So 161 from organic search. And direct 146. Campaigns. So it probably combines some, so like email and social. It probably combines some data, websites, social networks. So if you want to compare it, the channel grouping is probably a little bit different, but still it is really nice. So if I open this, yeah, it does say campaign not provided. Then you have campaigns. So this is probably UTM tagged. Then you have websites, so referral traffic. It says 20 visits. I have 20 sessions from referral traffic. So it's really good. Let's look at pages. Does it store the page views accurately? So I'm going to compare Matomo here, page views, homepage 372, page views 372. Yeah, exactly right. And then under training, Google Analytics and Company, it says 86 and then 63 unique. It is spot on. So if you want a fairly complete export of your Universal Analytics data and you don't want to spend a lot of time, this is probably the way to go. So if you want a solution that is completely free of charge and gives you a little bit more control over exactly what data is being exported, then Google Sheets is the solution for you. I've already created a blank sheet, and to make the import really easy, we're going into extensions, add-ons, and then under get add-ons. If you go to the screen, you need to look for Google Analytics, and then the first option, Google Analytics add-on, is the one that we are going to use. So I'm going to select that, I'm going to install it. So it's going to ask me for permission, I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to come back to actually set up the import. So if you've installed the add-on, we can go ahead and create our first report. Let's first name our Google Sheet. Let's say Universal Analytics Archive, and let's name the site as well. And now under extensions, let's go ahead and go under Google Analytics. Let's say create new report. So this will open up this panel on the right side of our report. And the thing is, we're going to slice up our data sets into different tables because Google Sheets is not capable of storing our entire data set in one table. So we need to slice it up in different tables. And the first table that we want to import is our traffic sources. Then we need to select the view that contains all our Universal Analytics data, the data that we want to export. For me, this is my account, my property, leonkorteweg.nl, Universal Analytics, and then this view. I only have one view. Under configuration options, we need to think about the metrics that we want to export. And later on in the video, I'm going to explain to you why we're not exporting some metrics. For instance, users we're not going to export. Instead, I'm going to export sessions. I'm going to export new users. I'm going to export bounces. So be careful not to export bounce rate, but we're going to export bounces. Again, I will explain later. Session duration. Again, not average, but the total session duration. And now I also want to export my conversion goals. And to do that, I'm going to say goal completions, goal XX completions. Here again, do not export your conversion rate. I will explain later. Export your goal XX completions. This is for now sufficient. Then under dimensions, I want to export the date because I want to export over the 10 years. I want to export for every day. I want to export the traffic sources. So I'm going to say date and I'm going to say source medium, because that is the dimension that contains all my traffic sources. If you have done this, if you followed along, you can just hit create report and this will create a new worksheet inside of our Google Sheets document. So let's go ahead and do this. Our first table configuration has been created. It is named traffic sources, 30 days ago, yesterday, new users. In the metrics column, you need to look for GA goal XX completions, because XX we need to change that to the actual goal number. So inside of your Universal Analytics view, go into admin and go into goals. Here you will see all the goals that were configured in your Universal Analytics account. And then if you want to export goal number 1, which is my contact form, just say GA goal XX and then remove that, replace that for the number 1. And if you also want to export the number of, for instance, for me, this is an important goal, training request goal ID 2. I want to say comma goal 2 completions. And then you can just go ahead and add as many as you want. GA source medium, GA date. I like the date to be in the first column, so I'm just going to swap those around. It also says a limit of 1000, which is fine for a test drive if you're confident. So you just run it once to test it. If it's okay, just raise this number to, let's say, 100,000 or 1 million. Also, we need to adjust the start date and the end date. I'm going to say start date is 2/20/14 and then the 1st of January. And then I'm not going to bother looking up the exact date where Universal Analytics has stopped tracking. I'm just going to say 2024 and then the 1st of January. So I get exactly 10 years of data. Let's run it and let's see what happens. We can run this report by going into extensions and under Google Analytics, say run reports. So I ran my reports and I see that all the data has come through properly. So I'm gonna go back into my report configuration. I'm gonna raise the limit to 100,000 and I'm gonna say run reports again to get the full date range in my Google Sheets. So it went ahead and my traffic sources are now fully imported over the last 10 years. So if you've done that and you have verified that your data is correct, just go ahead into skip reports and set this to true. Because after this first table, you probably want to import some more tables, and if you run those reports, it will prevent that this report runs again and again and again, because you will run out of your quota in the Google Analytics API very soon if you do this too often. So please say skip report is true if you have verified that your data has been imported correctly. So to speed up the video, I'm going to go ahead and add more tables to this view, and I'm going to show you afterwards what I did. Alright, I've added 4 more tables. I've added landing pages, top pages, mobile versus desktop, and countries. I will put the link in the video description to this screen so you can use this configuration in your own import. Just remember to adjust the view ID to your Universal Analytics view, and also check if you have the right goal number set in these metrics. Also, you may want to add more tables to this. For instance, if you have an e-commerce site, you might want to add a column, add a table for all your product performance, for instance. But this is just to get you started. So once you've imported all your Universal Analytics data into Google Sheets, you can use that data, for instance, in a Looker Studio dashboard where you can display the entire archive. If you create a new dashboard, you will be able to add Google Sheets as a connector, as a data source to the dashboard. Then you select the spreadsheet that we've been making, Google Universal Analytics archive of my own site, and then I select the worksheet traffic sources, which is the one that contains all the traffic source information. One small tip here, you need to select include specific range and then say A15 until Z. That will select the data from your traffic sources sheet from this cell all the way down to the bottom, because you do not want to import the top part. It will confuse Looker Studio, so you need to do this A15 until Z. So semicolon Z, that will do the trick, and then you can just add it as a source. Note that every separate table, so traffic sources, countries, mobile versus desktop, every table will have its own data source in Looker Studio. You're probably not used to that, but that is how it works. And now we can do things like this. We can add a timeline, for instance, and then you already see the entire date range. We could say add a control and then say date range control at the top, and then say we want a set date range that starts on a fixed date, the 1st of January, so January 2023, and then it ends at the end of 2023. There you go, apply. And then it says record count. We do not want that. We want the amount of sessions. So here we can see the history of the year to 2023. We can do things like this. We can show the total amount of sessions. We can show the total amount of goal completions. But do you remember that I said not to include bounce rate? We have the amount of bounces. What you can do here is you can restore bounce rate by saying add field, say bounce rate, and then say bounces divided by sessions. Then we say apply, and then I'm gonna say I want the average bounce rate, and I'm gonna also set this to a percentage. And this is how you restore bounce rate based on the underlying metrics, bounces and sessions. And you can do the same thing with conversion rate and average session duration. And we can also make a table that contains all the source medium, sessions, and then we can do the same thing, bounce rate, bounces, sessions, and then an average. And then we can add our conversions, so goal, which is contact form. And now we have a basic traffic source report inside of Looker Studio based on our Universal Analytics archive in Google Sheets. So if you want something a little bit more professional than storing your data in Google Sheets, you want something a little bit more professional, more robust, but you also want to export more data all at once, then I think Funnel.io is a great alternative. You get complete control over the entire export of your data, and the experience is really nice. You can start for free, so you can sign up for a free trial. Please note that the paid option of this program is quite expensive. So check beforehand if the free package is enough for you. I've already set up my account, so I'm just going to log in, and then I'm going to show you how you can import your Universal Analytics data into Funnel.io. So I'm logged into my Funnel.io account. To import your Universal Analytics into Funnel.io, you just go ahead into data sources, and then you can create a new data source. As you can see, I've already set up my own site, so I'm just going to repeat the process with a different site. I'm going to choose Google Analytics, and now I'm going to use the same credentials that I used beforehand. I'm going to press next. I'm going to say I want to import Universal Analytics, and I'm going to press next. And now it lets me select the Universal Analytics view that I want to import. So I'm going to select it here, and I'm going to press next. And in this next screen, it lets me define what I want to import. The default is already really good. It lets me import the source, the medium, campaign, and the country, and then these following metrics. And I believe this configuration is already really good. So if you do not want to bother setting up your own table, this is already really fine. You can even edit these fields and add more fields into this configuration. So for instance, if you want to make an analysis over mobile versus desktop, the dimension device category is probably a good option to import. Well, I'm going to say next, and now I'm going to say connect data source. And now it will run in the background importing my data. This will take a little bit of time depending on the amount of data that's being imported. But for my old site, it took me a little bit more than a day. This was also due because I was importing a lot of the data at the same time from different solutions. So your site may import a little bit quicker. But I would recommend that you do not wait up until the last moment, because if something goes wrong, you do not have any time. So do this as quickly as possible. So one of the great things about Funnel.io is that you can easily connect your data to a Looker Studio dashboard. To do that, you can go under Share into Google Looker Studio. You need to create a new data share. I'm going to call it Looker Studio. I'm going to say I want to import all data. I want to use this currency, and I'm going to hit Save. And after you've done that, you can go into Looker Studio, create a new dashboard, and then just look for Funnel.io. Here it is, to connect the data into a Looker Studio dashboard. All right, before we're going to close the video, I'm going to give you some tips on what you should export and what you should not export. So let's dive in real quick. I have a notepad here, and the first tip that I want to give you is never export the amount of users, because that will never work and you will get the wrong data in your reports, in your dashboards. The underlying reason is that you do not export raw data, but you do export aggregated data. So the raw data inside of Universal Analytics will look a little bit like this. You will have a cookie ID, and then you have a date. So for instance, the 1st of January, the 2nd of January, and the 3rd of January was a visit by the same user. And you know that by the ID of the cookie that's in the database of Universal Analytics. So if based upon the raw data that's inside of Universal Analytics, you ask, okay, how many users did I have in this date range? You will get the answer that you had only one user, because it's the same cookie ID. But now, if you ask the same question based on the aggregated data, so the data that we've exported from Universal Analytics, you have exported only this data. So you have the date, so for instance, the 1st of January, the 2nd of January, and the 3rd of January, and then you have one user on each date. If you ask this data set, how many users did I have in this date range, it gives me 3 users, even though I had only one user. That is because there is no way of getting the return visits from aggregated data. You cannot get that back from aggregated data, and that is why I recommend that you never export users from a Universal Analytics or from Google Analytics whatsoever. So the second tip, never export bounce rate. If you do something like this, so you have the date and then you have the amount of sessions, and then you have the bounce rate, and then you ask this data set, what's the average bounce rate? It's gonna do this. It's gonna say 50 plus 30 plus 20, and then it's gonna divide that by 3, and then it's gonna say the average bounce rate is 33%. But that's not the case, because on the 3rd of January, there were 5 times more visits than on the 1st of January, and therefore this average should weigh more than this average bounce rate. So this will never work. It will not give you accurate data. Instead, do this. So you just export the same data, but then instead of bounce rate, you export bounces. And then inside of Looker Studio, you just revert that. I already showed that in a previous section in the video under Google Sheets, if you want to look that up. But you can just add bounce rate back into your Looker Studio dashboard by just using this formula, bounces divided by sessions, and that will give you an accurate bounce rate. All right, thirdly, never export your conversion rate. It's the same as the previous tip, but if you do something like this, so you export the date, the sessions, and the conversion rate, and you're gonna ask this data set, what's the average conversion rate in this date range, it will give you the wrong number. Instead, do this, so you export the same table, but instead of conversion rate, you just use the amount of conversions, so the absolute number of conversions. Afterwards, you can add a calculated field inside of Looker Studio where you divide the number of conversions by the number of sessions, and that will restore the conversion rate, and that will give you the proper data. And then my last tip, final tip, never export the average session duration. So it's quite the same as the previous tips, but do not do this. So don't export the average session duration. Instead, export the total session duration, and then afterwards use a calculated field inside of your Looker Studio dashboard that says session duration divided by sessions. And you just format the number to a time and then say I want it to be an average, and that will restore the average session duration back into your Looker Studio dashboard. All right, that's it for today. I hope this video was clear. I hope it was helpful. Archive your Universal Analytics data so you don't lose any data and you will be able to reference your history in the future. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments below. Also, if you want to watch more videos, just head over to my profile. You will find all sorts of videos there on how you can set up Google Analytics and how you can use your website statistics in order to grow your website. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.